everybody. In this video I'm going to kind of continue my theme of painting sort of skirmish appropriate figures. Last week we did a Viking warrior, and this week I am going to be doing a Western style figure, since obviously Western style skirmish games are currently enormously popular and have actually been popular for a very long time, probably more so than some other genres if you consider rule sets like Legends of the Old West. It's once again not a very difficult figure to paint, but there are, as usual, a few tricks that I hope you can learn from watching me do this. This figure is from Foundry, by the way. They have a very excellent old range of these figures. And this one has a lot of character, even though he's simply dressed. You can really see he's got that kind of nice Western swagger, and he's sort of ready, poised to draw his pistol. I've already base coated him as usual using gray enamel and painted his skin, which I've done in the standard way that I usually do, except I had to substitute Agrex Earthshade for my kind of skin wash. I usually use Ogre and Flesh, but as most of you know, that color's been discontinued. It's replaced with something else, but I don't have a replacement color right now, so I'm going to have to make do with Agrex Earthshade, and it actually works just fine. It just gives the skin a little less of a warm red cast, and you get a little more of a cool brown kind of tan cast, but maybe when we're talking about sort of people out west, fighting, that's not such a bad thing. So let's go ahead and get started on painting our Western gunslinging hero. The really good thing and the bad thing about a figure like this is you have a lot of freedom in how to make it look. There's no right or wrong way. There's no uniform that tells you what colors you need to paint, so you get a lot of choices. And so then you have to make some decisions about what's going to look good. The way I like to approach something like this is if I can just figure out what color I want one piece of clothing to be, that's a good start for figuring out the rest. So I knew I wanted sort of warm brown pants, and that's what I'm starting with here. And I am going to be base coating them using the Foundry Butter Fudge dark shade, and then we will move on from there. Next, I'm going to enhance the shadows on the Butter Fudge shade base that I made by washing everything with some of the Citadel Agrex Earthshade wash. With the wash done and dry, I can concentrate now on highlighting the pants. And I'm going to do this using the rest of the Foundry Butter Fudge triad. So I'm going to start out by applying the medium Butter Fudge color all over and, blending it out, and only really not applying it down in the deepest creases of the fabric. Then once that's done, I'll move on to the Butter Fudge Light, and once again blending it out and applying to slightly less surface areas, making sure it's really on the creases and the areas that would get hit with a lot of light. And as usual, I'll go over those areas, some of them several times, to build up depth and extra brightness and color where I need it. When I finished this, I was still not 100% happy with how this figure looked in terms of, the lightest areas. So I then took some Foundry Buff Leather Light, and I applied that really to the edges of the fabric and the knees and areas where I really wanted to build up some serious light areas on the figure. With the pants done, I had to really start thinking about what color I wanted to make the shirt. Now, as I said, it's good to pick the color you want for one clothing item and then sort of use that to kind of inform your decision about other clothing items. Since I have sort of these nice warm brown pants, I decided that I wanted my shirt to follow in that trend and be really warm and, go sort of with warm reds and browns in this figure. It feels sort of somehow like it fits the Western theme. So the colors I chose for this this shirt were basically going to be Boneyard, the Boneyard triad from Foundry, but I decided I would mix a little bit of Madder Red Dark into that to sort of give it a rose tint. Now with the base color of Boneyard, which I apply first, you really don't see that. It really kind of looks like a very orange color when you've got, because it is already an orange color, so with the red you don't notice it. But then once you take Boneyard Medium and mix some of that Madder Red in and start applying highlights, which I'm going to do, you'll see that the figure's shirt becomes gradually more and more red and pink. And so I'm going to apply progressive layers of Boneyard Medium with the Madder Red mixed and then Boneyard Light with the Madder Red mixed in to build up layer and color. And then I will finish with a final highlight of white and Madder Red. This is really very pink because I ultimately want him to have kind of a pink shirt, but then with very warm tones to it. And I'm just doing the same sort of blending and highlighting, layering over to get really, you know, bright areas of color that I did on the pants. And yeah, I know he's gonna have a rose colored shirt, but you know, like I said back then, when this guy was around, you know, it wasn't like a non-macho thing to have a pink shirt. That was kind of later on. Besides which, if you see a guy walking down the street with a big pistol, you're probably not going to question his fashion sense anyway. Now I'm going to work on the leather areas of the figures. I discussed painting kind of dark leather actually in my last video on Vikings, but I'll just go over it here again actually because I think it's kind of useful. I am basic coating everything using Vallejo German camouflage black brown, which includes his shoes and his belt and his pistol holster, and also sort of the butt and sort of top and sides of his gun. I am then going to go ahead and I'm going to take some bay brown medium, and I'm going to apply that sort of just to one side of the dark leather, sort of the top in most cases. I'm going to sort of blend that out. So what you're getting is sort of a leather that's lighter sort of on one side and then darker on the other. Next, I'm going to take some Foundry Chestnut Dark or shade, and I'm going to apply that in the same way, but then even less of it, sort of, so you get a very warm leather, sort of warm color on one side of the leather that sort of blends out into a very, very dark shade. And then finally I'll take the chestnut medium and I'll just use that as an edge highlight on the leather. I'm not going to blend it out, but that gives the illusion of areas of leather that are extremely worn because they've been really, 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 you know, abraded basically. And once I've finished with, you know, these belt and shoes, then I'm also going to go ahead and take the Foundry Rawhide Triad, then really quickly just paint sort of the accessory bits on his suspenders, because he's got like little bits that hold them onto his pants and sort of at the back where the two straps come together, and those parts on suspenders are often leather. So I want them to be a little bit of a different color than the belt and shoes. So that's why I chose rawhide for those. And so now, again, it's time to handle some of the details of this guy. So first I'm going to work on his scarf, which I'm going to paint using the Foundry Madder Red Triad. As I said before, use one piece of clothing and choose the color for that, something you like, and then let that inform your decision on how to paint the other clothes or the other clothing items. So like I said, I have a warm pair of pants, a warm tone brown, and then I use sort of a warmish pinkish tone for the shirt. So and then the scarf, it then makes sense to use the sort of brownish warm red color. So the colors are not all the same, but you're trying to be consistent in the sort of tonal values you're using. So in this case, it's all browns and pinks and warm colors. One exception is though that I'm going to paint the patch on his pants, and for that I am going to use the Foundry Storm Blue Triad. And you may think, well, that's a little bit counterintuitive with all of the warm colors everywhere else in the figure. And what I said before, it's not a hard fast rule. You don't have to paint every single thing in warm tones. But, you know, the point is that the main elements of the clothing need to have those, you know, have those colors in them. And it's kind of nice in that case then to have some area that actually doesn't follow that rule, which is why the patch is going to be that dark blue, so it gives a nice contrast. And I'm going to paint with a Storm Blue Triad, then I'm going to take some thin white and I'm going to paint a checkerboard pattern on it, because those little details really add to a simple figure like that. And that's also why I've gone ahead and put some Boneyard, the Boneyard Triad actually, onto the sides of his pistol. Even though you hardly see that, it's kind of nice because now he's got sort of a bone or an ivory handled pistol. So just a nice little detail like that. And that's how you make figures like this fun and make them feel personal and unique, you know, by adding these little details to them. It gives it a professional touch, and it, you know, it helps you tell a story in your figure. So finally, I'm going to tackle the sort of the last element, color element in this figure, which is the black and gray areas. And I'm basically decided that I'll paint the suspenders in this black gray color, and then obviously the bowler hat. I'm going to do the suspenders first because I'm handling the hat a lot, because for stability when I'm painting, I don't want to do it before I have to. So I'm going to base coat both the hat and the suspenders using black from the Foundry Charcoal Gray Triad. Once that's done, I'm going to take some black and mix it with the charcoal gray medium, as I often do, just to get a slightly less big shade step because the charcoal gray medium is just too big a difference in my opinion. That will be the medium shade, and then I'll apply a light, sort of lighter highlight using just pure charcoal gray medium, and then once again the charcoal gray light. And I actually also mixed a little bit of white into that, again, to get even lighter edge highlight color for sort of the edges of the bowler hat, the top of the hat band, and just sort of along the edges of the suspenders. You don't have to do this, but, you know, I kind of like, you know, really building up different colors on the hat. Also, you could choose to paint your hat band a certain color, like, you know, red or green or anything. You know, it will make the character a little bit more flamboyant, give him a little bit more personality. You know, like I said, you're trying to find a story to tell here. But I decided I wanted to keep the hat relatively, you know, modest and just go for a black hat with a black band, because that was, with bowler hats, it's pretty common. That's what you really see most, is just a black hat with a black band. And then one final detail I'm going to do is I'm going to apply some of the Vallejo natural steel to some of the metal areas. I base coated them too with the black and highlighted with the charcoal gray medium, and that's basically the pistol's grip and, you know, trigger, and also his belt buckle. And so once they were base coated, that just a little touch of that sort of shinier metal color is really all you need, because they're very, very, you know, small elements on this figure. I didn't mention earlier, I've gone ahead and painted his hair, and I basically used Bay Brown Light for that, and or Bay Brown Medium, sorry, I highlighted it with Bay Brown Light, and I even then washed it with the Agrex Earth Shade just to get a little more unity. But like I said, hair is a very personal choice, and any color is really good for that. It's finding something that goes with your whole figure. But I found that the brown was, you know, had good unity with all the other colors that I've already sort of incorporated into this particular character. And so that about takes care of our cowboy. I did take some white really quickly over the buttons on his shirt and on his suspenders just to make them pop out a bit. I know this was a fairly simple figure, but I hope you at least learned something about, you know, how to make choices with colors when it comes to figures like this, where you have a lot of freedom in the clothing, how to, you know, get started, and then how to get some sort of cohesiveness in colors so that everything fits together. You feel like you've got a unified character and that you're really telling a story. And, you know, adding that extra touch to these simple figures is really important. Adding little details that, you know, make them an individual and make them unique. And, you know, I think that's something, you know, hopefully you'll think about a little more. So please, once again, like this video, share it, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Leave me comments about what you thought. Normally I speed up my videos somewhat, and this is no exception, but I didn't speed it up as much as I sometimes do. So let me know if you liked it a little bit slower like this, or you want me to go back to faster, if you want me to go even slower than I did this time. Your opinions really are important to me, and, you know, that's how I figure out what to do next. So once again, hope you enjoyed this, and until next time, happy painting.